DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And we are back. We are back with some more appetizers for you. We have some appetizers for you this evening, and I'm talking about UFC 323, Dvalishvili versus Jan 2, and that's UFC 323, Merab Dvalishvili versus Peter Jan 2, and this just happened here on December 6th. 2025, so just this past Saturday, and this was at the T-Mobile Arena in Paradise, Nevada, United States, and there was 18,603 in attendance, and the total gate was 4.7 million. All right, so this was the rematch between Merab Dvalishvili and Peter Yan, and I think this card turned out to be okay. I think there's definitely some argument to be made about that when you get to the main card, because there's some not so fond endings. How some of the main event main card fights kind of turned out, but I mean the prelims and early prelims were exciting. It seemed like most of your best fights and best stoppages and stuff, besides maybe the main event, all came on the prelims, which that seems to be pretty common here lately in some of these pay-per-view cards. Same with one of your co-main events or main event fights getting ruined due to an injury too. Seems very similar to UFC. What was that? UFC 321 or 322. When Aspinall got poked in the eye and just kind of ruined your main event. This wasn't the main event, but this was the co-main event. But anyways, let's get into this a little bit here. Get into the prelims, and then we'll get back into our picks here on the main card. But anyways, let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And so the first thing is I was kind of going back while trying to watch the early prelims and the prelims. I was kind of going back and forth between Alabama and Georgia, and then the night game, Indiana versus Ohio State. So I didn't catch every fight on the early prelims or just the standard prelims. But I'm glad that I got to see some of the fights that I witnessed on the early prelims. Yeah, definitely the early prelims, because you could say definitely the best knockout of the night, maybe performance of the night, maybe came on just like the third fight on the card between Iowa Baranowski versus Ibo Asian. So Iowa and Ibo just threw down in a minute 29 of the first round. Iowa Baranowski KO'd Ibo Asian. And it was basically just a modern day street fight, modern day bar fight is what it was. Both fighters landed hard knockout shots for any type of light heavyweight, and both of them went down, came back to life, knocked the other one down, and then it finally ended with Iowa Baranowski knocking Ibo down and laying him flat on his back and landing a couple more shots to finally put the lights out. But yeah, it was basically just like a minute and 29 seconds of like Forrest Griffin and and Stephen Bonner kind of, but someone ended up getting knocked out is kind of what happened. But yeah, that was a crazy, and we'll get into the bonus awards and fighter of the night and performance of the nights. But you could maybe think that I'm giving you a bit of a hint of who maybe won some of those, but that was probably the best fight on the card in regards to the performance and just the finish of it. And I'm glad I was able to catch that. I was luckily in between college college championship games, so I got to see that. And then I sadly got to see the fight that came after that, and that was the bout between lightweight, and that previous fight was a light heavyweight bout. And then so the next fight, the co-main event for the early prelims, was uh was a lightweight bout between Jalen Turner versus Edson Barbosa. And it seemed weird because they did this big like promo package before the fight for Edson Barbosa. I was kind of confused as to whether like is this his retirement match or is he retiring, or is he laying his dog down, or is this his last fight in the UFC? So I didn't really understand. They did like a whole promo package of like his whole career leading up to the fight, which Edson Barbosa, quite a few of these guys on this card were, it's kind of like the young guy versus the old guy, kind of, even though Jalen Turner had retired more recently than Edson Barbosa did, even though he's only 30 years old. But yeah, Edson Barbosa, they put together a retirement and promo package for him, and maybe he needs to listen to it because he looked bad in this fight. About a minute in to the fight, he looked completely, absolutely gassed, and then got taken out of there by the 2:24 mark of the first round. Jalen Turner just was throwing combinations and punches at Edson Barbosa until he just wilted, and the ref stopped it. But yeah, he just looked bad in that fight, and going to be 40 in January. I mean, there's really no reason for Edson Barbosa, probably a UFC Hall of Famer, should be fighting anymore, especially these 30-year-old killers like Jalen Turner. Just that was kind of a tad embarrassing on Edson Barbosa's side of things. And then the co-main event was of the early prelims was Bruno Ferreira versus Marvin Vettori, but I don't think didn't watch all of that. But Marvin Vettori doesn't look like the guy that he was before he had the knee injury and had some of the title reigns. Marvin Vettori just doesn't look like the same guy. And then onto the prelims, I think I was into Ohio State and Indiana by the time some of these prelims fights happened. We t pointed out Macy Barber as just a notable fighter on the prelims, but Macy Barber beat Kyrene Silva by decision, and then Chris Duncan beat Terrence McKinney by submission and a Kana choke, and Manuel Torres got a really nice, impressive TKO punches knockout of Grant Dawson at the 2:25 mark of the first round. So those are the prelims. Like I said, it's maybe your most exciting fight and most exciting moment of the fight may have came in like your third fight on the card. But anyways, we're moving on to the main card now. So this is where we made our picks and things like that. So onto the main event here, the main card. So we have the first fight on the main card, the curtain jerker for the main card. We had a light heavyweight bout between Jan Blachowicz versus Bogdan Gusov. And I originally picked this to be most likely a unanimous a decision victory for Bogdan Gusov, just for the age reason, mainly just because Jan Blachowicz is what, 42, won't not far from 40. Yeah, he'll be 43 in February, so he's one of the oldest fighters, probably is the oldest light heavyweight in the UFC, and he's never really been knocked out or submitted. So I didn't think Bogdan Guskov was gonna finish him or anything like that, but I thought he was just gonna be the stronger, faster, younger fighter, and that was gonna lead to his victory. But really, if Jan Blachowicz could have kept the fight standing through the through all 3 rounds, then I could have seen Jan Blachowicz easily winning, like kind of like a point striking bout, like just kind of a kickboxing bout, because that's how the first and the third round went, where it's just like Jan Blachowicz was the one landing the more shots and landing the cleaner shots, and he was just getting off a little bit better in the standing game in the first and in the third round. But in that fourth round, Bogdan Guskov took Jan Blachowicz down like early, like for the majority of the round, and was just beating him up bad with some devastating elbows and ground and pound, where I guess the judges ended up, two of the judges had that as a 10-8 round, the second round, because of the brutal elbow strikes and the ground and pound Bogdan Guskov was administering to Jan Blachowicz, to where it ended up being a majority draw. So it was 29-28. So that was one of the judges actually did have Jan Blachowicz winning, and must have not had the second round as a 10-8 for Bogdan Guskov. But the other two judges had it 28-28. And that's a three round, 15-minute fight. So even though I personally didn't think that Bogdan Guskov, his round was that dominant, that like a lot of times I feel like when you got to hand out a 10-8 round, it's usually because the a guy that's getting the 8, getting the bad score against them, it's usually because it seems like the fight's almost about to get stopped, which it didn't really seem like. It was maybe kind of getting close to that, but I guess it was just because of the amount of solid elbow shots and just the damage, I guess, that it caused. But I didn't ever feel like Jan Blachowicz was going to get outed by any of that ground and pound or elbows, but it must have been the damage that the refs liked. So I didn't get this pick right because I picked Bogdan Guskov to win by decision, but I can't say I necessarily got it wrong either, because I mean, who could predict it to be a decision like that? But definitely not the most impressive performance by Bogdan Guskov. He should have done what he did in the second round, and two of the rounds would have been enough to win him this fight. But yeah, so we start off this card. So that would be what, 0-1, I guess, for the draw, the majority draw. All right, so now then, on to the second fight on the card. We have Peyton Talbot versus Henry Cejudo. And I originally picked this fight to be a decision win by Peyton Talbot. Same kind of reason as the first fight on the card, with Jan Blachowicz being 40, going to be 43 before long, and maybe you go all the way back to the early prelims and say that about Edson Barbosa. It's a young guy versus versus an old guy that seems kind of on his way out. You got Henry Cejudo, who's what, 38, 30, yeah, he'll be 30, yeah, he'll be 39 in February. And I wish I'd have known. I'd have maybe had a different pick for this. Like if I would have thought that Henry Cejudo was going to get submitted or knocked out in this fight, if I'd have known beforehand, I bet there was some bettors and gamblers out there would have liked to have known beforehand that, yeah, this is Henry Cejudo's retiring for the second time from the UFC. And they just like Edson Barbosa, they put a whole like retirement promo package behind him of like his career and all that. And if I'd have known that originally, I'd have maybe, like I said, I'd have maybe thought that Henry Cejudo was maybe going to get stopped or was just going to quit because it's his last fight. What more does he have to fight for? So you get that sometimes in fighters or players or athletes in their last match. They might not dig as deep as they have to because it's the last time they have to fight. But luckily, we ended up getting this fight correct, regardless of him deciding to retire or not. So it ended up being a decision anyways, 30-27, 30-27, 30-27. And that was a 3-round, 5-minute, 15-minute fight. And Peyton Talbot pretty much dominated this fight pretty much anywhere it went, he was just a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, a little bit younger. Even in the ground game, towards the end of the first round, he got his first like big takedown of Henry Cejudo. And when after he took him down, he was like looking over to the camera and tongue out and like shaking his head and like smiling and stuff because he was so pumped up, which I would be as well if I had just taken down a former gold medalist, UFC champ in Henry Cejudo, which, like I said, Peyton Talbot pretty much dominated the fight anywhere it went. But you got to give credit to Henry Cejudo for not quitting, because there was a couple times where it looked like Peyton Talbot had him rocked pretty good and was landing some pretty consistent and some devastating ground and pound. And Henry Cejudo didn't tap, didn't get TKO, just kept fighting. So he has that championship valor. He's just not young enough to do it anymore. So that was an impressive performance, even in a loss. And even in a 30-27, 30-27, 30-27 loss where he lost all across the board, that was still and respectful, impressive performance and a good retirement fight for Henry Cejudo. Much better than going out on an eye poke and that being the last fight you ever had. But still, much credit to Peyton Talbot, but even more to Henry Cejudo for sticking it out and fighting the whole 15 minutes, and definitely doing good credit to his Hall of Fame career. All right. Now then, on to the third fight on the card. We have a flyweight bout between Tatsuro Tierra versus Brandon Moreno. And I originally picked this fight for Brandon Moreno to win. I was thinking a rear naked choke or some type of submission that he'd maybe get Tatsuro Tierra late in the second round or in the third round, after he's gotten him kind of tired out a little bit and kind of work the ground game, and maybe or if he gets him kind of rocked and on the ropes, maybe get an opportunity to jump on his back and try to get a rear naked choke. But we didn't get really any of that in this fight. It was more Tatsuro Terra who seemed to have more power in this fight against Brandon Moreno, but he was trying to go for a takedown and kind of a scramble with Brandon Moreno in the first round, and early in that round he got caught. Tatsuro got caught in Brandon Moreno's like an inverted like triangle, and he was stuck in that thing for like almost the whole first round. And like right as he was like the choke and the pressure of it was getting released, he like lifted Brandon Moreno up to like try to slam him on his head. And of course he slams him on his head like that, and it ends up sinking the triangle back in. And but I guess with how he had Brandon Moreno kind of pushed up against the fence and not letting him get the type of leverage that he was needing so he could get the real stranglehold on that. But Tatsuro Terra ended up getting out of the first round without tapping to that. But then in the second round, he was he was the first one to start going for like takedowns, and he went for a shot, and Brandon Moreno did a pretty good job of sprawling on it. But Tatsuro Tierra was really vicious on trying to get that takedown. So then he went for a trip next, and in that scramble he ended up on Brandon Moreno's back, and at first was trying to go for a rear naked choke of his own, but Brandon Moreno ended up turning over to his belly, and Tatsuro Tierra ended up flattening him out and started just landing punches on him. And there's some people and some of the color commentators saying that they thought the fight was stopped a little bit early, but from the moment that Brandon Moreno like turned over to his belly and got flattened out and just did like this, he got punched 10 times unanswered times. So that fight should have been stopped when it was. He was just going to get damaged more. He didn't look like he was from the 10 punches that he took. Like just from side to side, just him laying on his belly. It didn't look like he was improving his position very well. So impressive, really impressive performance by Tatsuro Taira over a former champ or was champion of the flyweight divisions. I do believe twice he was the champion of the flyweight division, and his what was it, his quad trilogy with Davison Figueroa didn't look like that against what the 25 year old born in 2000 Tatsuro Taira. Looked like there's a definitely a new name in the UFC flyweight division. But I'm on the one to where when it comes to whether it was stopped early or stopped too late, I think it's probably always in the best case for the fighter that maybe it gets stopped a little early than it gets stopped a little too late, because then you deal with all types of different injuries and head injuries, CT, things like that. So if you ain't fighting back or trying to improve your position, you get punched in the side of the head 10 times. And I think it's probably time for the fight to get stopped. All right. So now then, on to the co-main event of the evening. You had a flyweight championship bout between Alexander Pantoja, the champion, versus Joshua Van, the challenger. And so Alexander Pantoja was probably being looked at as like I guess the greatest, I guess the greatest flyweight uh, since 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 the greatest flyweight, greatest 125 pounder since Johnson, since Demetrius Johnson. And even though he had only defended it, it's kind of crazy that people really thought that he was uh, gonna gonna defend it as many times. Let's see, so he's defended it 4 times, and Demetrius Johnson defended it 11 times, and even Demetrius Johnson let out a tweet that he actually thought he was gonna break his record. Like, no freaking way was he gonna defend the belt. What would that have been? Like 7 more times, which it didn't happen. But the thing is, it's the way it happened. Gives you very similar Tom Aspinall and his last main event championship bout kind of vibes, because it ended in an injury, and it ended at 20 seconds in the first round to an injury. So you can't even get like a reasonable like we can judge the fight off the first 2 rounds or at the start of the third, and we can judge the fight off of what we have to go off of. It's just like a couple punches back and forth. Alexander Pantoja throws a high kick. Joshua Vaughn catches it, and as he catches it, Alexander Pantoja kind of like falls over, and when he falls over to like brace himself, he puts his hands down, and the weight from him landing on his hands, like bracing himself, I guess either his arm broke or his elbow dislocated, and that was it. That was it. At the 26-second mark of the first round, Alexander Pantoja got TKO'd due to an arm injury. And I originally picked this fight as an Alexander Pantoja to win this by submission. I was thinking another rear naked choke. I was thinking Alexander Pantoja was going to have three rear naked choke finishes in a row. But we didn't even get to see any of it with how this fight ended. Depending on how severe the injury is to Pantoja, I would be surprised if we don't see a rematch in this, because we learned nothing from this other than when you fall like that to go brace yourself. I guess you shouldn't use all your arms and all your weight to brace yourself when falling down, because it usually leads to an injury. The Saints have had not the Saints, but the Pelicans have had bad luck with that. That happened with DeAndre Murray, like in the second game of his career with the Pelicans. He fell down backwards like that, and and broke his wrist. I think it wasn't his elbow, it was his wrist. And a player that had been playing 70 games like back to back to back. Next thing you know, his next injury after that's a ruptured Achilles, something with the Pelicans, some bad luck or something. All right, so we had a new champion. A title changed hands. So your new champion is Joshua Ban, who is your new champion, and he defeated Alexander Pantoja, TKO arm injury at 26 minutes, 26 seconds of the first round. New flyweight champion. Wow, I have to see how that all plays out from here, though. All right, so now then we are on to the main event of UFC 323, Dvalishvili versus Yan 2. So the main event is a bantamweight championship bout between Merab Dvalishvili, the champion, versus Peter Yan, the challenger. And I originally thought that this was just going to be, you know, a continuation of their first fight. I thought this was just going to be, round 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and Merab Dvalishvili winning another master class of just constant pressure and constant takedown attempts and shots. And I mean, he tried it in this fight, but Peter Yan had definitely changed his whole game plan, and it's just and just flipped this fight and how the first fight happened went and how this fight happened just completely on its head because you got the complete opposite. You got a Peter Yan master class over Merab Dvalishvili to where it got to the point. What was it like in the third round, maybe towards the end of the second, into the third, fourth, and fifth round, where it turned into Peter Yan taking Merab Dvalishvili down. But anytime Merab Dvalishvili was wanting to take Peter Yan down, he was just literally just like shaking it off. And there was any little wild scrambles where it looked like Merab ended up on top of Peter Yan. Peter Yan just stand right back up. And then later in the fight, what was the kind of the craziest, some of the craziest moments of the fight, and was kind of surprised that Peter Yan didn't get Merab Dvalishvili out of there, even though Merab Dvalishvili's shown in his entire career that he's not one to really be stopped. But man, because yeah, he's only been submitted once and he's never been knocked out before. But man, he was taking these pretty devastating liver kicks and body shots, and every time he'd land a clean body shot or a liver kick, he'd let out a wild like scream, to where you'd think like, oh man, his legs are going to completely go limp and he's done due to the liver shot. But Merab Dvalishvili's freaking kind of crazy, so he just keep going, even taking just, I don't know, tons of body shots and just ones that would probably stop lesser champions and lesser fighters. But what was kind of wild at the end of this fight, yeah, I think it showed that Merab Dvalishvili actually had like more significant strikes. So if you're kind of just going off the stats, you would maybe think Merab Dvalishvili might have won this, and even one of the judges had it 48-47, but the other two had it 49-46, 49-46. But I personally couldn't really pull out. I couldn't pull out two rounds that Merab Dvalishvili won in this fight. Maybe what? I'm trying to think. Maybe like in the fourth or the fifth round, maybe Peter Yan started slowing down a little bit, but majority of the fight, Peter Yan controlled the fight wherever it went. And like I said, it was those vicious body shots, punches, and liver kicks that kind of sealed it for me. Just of a visual of the damage that Merab was taking, and Merab's Dvalishvili, his face was beat up too. He's looking Texas Chainsaw Massacre on top of all the body shots. I imagine I wouldn't be surprised he's pissing blood. What is today? That was Saturday, and today's Tuesday. Wouldn't be surprised he's still pissing blood. It showed him on social media. He was sitting in a ambulance and on a gurney in an ambulance. So his ass probably went to the hospital after the fight because of the whooping Peter Yan put on him. And I'm a Peter Yan fan, honestly. I liked him when he was champion, and it felt like there was like an aura around him. Like he was going to be a champion for a long time before the whole DQ 10-6 elbows or what was it, knee to, yeah, it was a knee to a down opponent and Aljamain Sterling, and just kind of sent Peter Yan's kind of career from a kind of like a tilter whirl. It took him a little bit to get back on track, and it's definitely an impressive performance and growth and a great fighter in Peter Yan. And with how this fight went and how the first fight went, I find it hard to believe that there won't be a rematch for this, a trilogy fight, a third fight between Peter Yan and Merab Dashwili. Kind of the same thing is, I guess, probably won't be seeing Peyton Talbot quite so soon in a championship bout between either Peter Yan and Merab Dashwili, just because of how that fight went. And the same thing with Tatsuro Taira after beating Brandon Moreno, probably not quite so fast that we'll see him, depending on how serious the injury is for Alexander Pantoja. It might just be a rematch between Joshua Van and Alexander Pantoja. But I mean, I guess if he's on the shelf for a little while, I wouldn't mind seeing Joshua Van versus Tatsuro Taira. But so I ended up picking Merab Dashwili to go decision, and it ended up going the complete opposite of that. It's still decision, but it wasn't a master class like it was in the first fight where Merab Dashwili went for like 50 something takedowns. He just couldn't do that against Peter Yan in this one. Peter Yan just shook all that off, and if he somehow did in a wild scramble get him to the ground, Peter Yan just amazingly would just stand right back up. So ended up being a decision, 49-46, 49-46, and 48-47. And that's a five round, 5 minute, 25-minute total fight. And the last judge there for 48-47, I don't know which 2 rounds you would have given to Merab Dashwili, because that's how dominant of a performance it was for Peter Yan. And I personally want to see would like to see the trilogy to that. All right, so that's UFC 323. Dashwili versus Peter Yan 2. Merab Dashwili versus Peter Yan 2, which was happened just this past Saturday. And so that was the conclusion of this season of pay-per-views of the 2025 season. And we'll get, and I think it went out, not quite with a bang. Like I said, the underwhelming title change with Pantoja, and then that's what was, I guess that's really the most exciting thing about this card, is that there were 2 titles changed hands, just not exactly with how both of them happened. One was an injury, and then on top of that, on the main card, the curtain jerker fight was a draw. So most people don't get too excited about fights that end in draws unless they're just crazy ass wars where people are just throwing constant haymakers at one another for at least 15 minutes straight. And then of course no one likes a fight that ends 20 seconds in due to an injury. But anyways, let's get into the bonuses here, and then we'll look at the next pay-per-view in January, and we'll get up out of here. So the fight of the night was Merab Dashwili versus Peter Yan. Now, I agree with that. It was an exciting fight, and it was a lot of back and forth. But Peter Yan dominated just in regards to how he was able to just shake Merab Dashwili off anytime he was trying to get a hold of him or trying to take him down. And like I said, I've said it a couple times now, anytime he was able to get him down, and usually the only times he was able to get him down is when it was in some type of like wild scramble, and then Merab Dashwili wouldn't be able to hold him down for more than a couple seconds before Peter Yan's standing right back up and hitting him with some of those nasty body shots, either kicks or liver punches. So yeah, good fight of the night. It was like kind of like a modern day modern day and a smaller weight class version of like the whole crazy fight of the year type of fights that you have like against Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. And then on the performances of night, you had on the TKO of Grant Dawson at the 25, 2:25 minute of the first round TKO over Grant Dawson. And then we mentioned it, definitely the best moment of the night, best performance of the night, best knockout of the night was the light heavyweight bout. Iwan Barwanowski versus Ibo Asian. Uh, Iwo Barwanowski's KO punches at the 129 mark of the first round, which was literally just like it was like a controlled bar fight, a controlled street fight, modern day street fight, modern day bar fight. Like the only thing that was missing was like a beer bottle getting broken over someone's head or broken on the ground, and then someone trying to use it as a weapon afterwards. Like that's all only thing we were missing. All right, so that's UFC 323, Dvalishvili versus Yan 2. And so that was December 6, 2025. That's the last pay-per-view of the year. And then the last card of the 2025 season is UFC on ESPN, Royval versus Cap, and that's December 13th, 2025. But I probably won't be back on here till UFC 324, Gaethje versus Pemblin, and that's Justin Gaethje versus Patty Pemblin, and that's for the interim lightweight championship. I think Ilya Tapora is going on a break or something, a hiatus, or he had a kid or something, so you won't. So it's it'll be an interim bout between Gaethje and Patty Pemblin, and then you have a women's bantamweight bout between Kayla Harrison, the champion, versus Amanda Nunes coming back from retirement. So you got kind of like a super fight between those two, and then notable names: former champion Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadon, Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas, Arnold Allen, Jan Silva, Waldo Acosta, Derek Lewis, Umar Nurmagomedov, Davison Figueiredo. So yeah, there's a lot of notable names on this card. So this is should be a good way to start the 2026 season. So that's a January 24th, 2026. And what's kind of weird about that is, so they have that like the third week of the third week of January, and then just 2 weeks later, February 1st, they have UFC 325, and you got your rematch between Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. So we'll have a lot of content and back to back, pretty to start off the new year 2026. You'll be going UFC 324 and then 325, just like that. So we'll coming at you with a bang for UFC and mixed martial arts for the 2026 season. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So can I get a check, please?